We are now starting with a new chapter, that is Introduction to Analytical Chemistry. What is analytical chemistry? Analytical chemistry helps us investigate the chemical composition of a particular substance. Analytical chemistry makes the use of instruments. There are different methods which are carried out to separate different components of matter under study, also to identify and quantify the matter. It gives us the chemical or physical information about a particular sample. Analysis is of two types. It might be qualitative or quantitative. Qualitative means regarding quality and quantitative means regarding quantity. Let us now study analysis in detail. When you want to carry out analysis, it is done using a small sample of the material which is to be tested and not on a bigger amount of sample. When you take the solid or a liquid sample in a smaller amount, like in few grams, then the analysis is called as semi-micro analysis. Micro means small. There are two types of analysis. First is the qualitative analysis and second is the quantitative analysis. Qualitative analysis includes methods like precipitation, extraction, and distillation. Precipitation is a process of conversion of a solution into solid by converting the substance into insoluble form. Extraction is a process wherein one or more components are separated from a solid or liquid mixture. Distillation is a process of separating components from a mixture based on their boiling and melting points. In qualitative analysis, identification may be based on the difference in color, odor, that is the smell, the melting points, boiling points, and the reactivity of a particular substance. Quantitative methods consist of volumetric analysis, gravimetric analysis, etc. Volumetric analysis is a quantitative chemical analysis in which the amount of substance is determined by measuring the volume that it occupies. Gravimetric analysis is a technique in which the amount of analyte can be determined through the measurement of mass. Analyte is a substance whose chemical constituents are being measured and determined. Now, we move on to the chemical methods of qualitative analysis. The chemical analysis of a sample can be carried out in two ways. First is by dry method and the second is by wet method. In dry method, the sample which you are going to test is not dissolved, and in wet method, the sample is first dissolved and then analyzed to determine its composition. But when we do the qualitative analysis, mostly or every time the dry method is used as the preliminary test. Preliminary test is the first test which determines the color, the texture, the odor, etc. of a particular compound. The semi-micro qualitative analysis is carried out using apparatus like test tubes, beakers, evaporating dish, crucible, spot plate, watch glass, wire gauze, water bath, burner, blowpipe, pair of tongs, centrifuge, etc. I told you semi-micro analysis is when you take the amount of substance to be tested in a very small quantity. We know that there are two types of compounds, organic and inorganic compounds. Organic are those which has carbon as the prime element, and inorganic contains element and other metal. So when you are carrying out the qualitative analysis of organic and inorganic compounds, it involves different types of tests. We cannot use the same set of tests to carry out the qualitative analysis of these compounds. The majority of organic compounds are composed of a relatively small number of elements. The most important ones are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, halogen, phosphorus. And the elementary qualitative analysis is concerned with the detection of the above elements. If you want to carry out the identification of organic compound, then it involves tests like detection of functional group, determination of melting boiling point, etc. And if you want to carry out the analysis of inorganic compound, then it just involves the detection and confirmation of cations and anions in that particular compound. Cations are those ions which have positive charge and anions are those ions which have negative charge. Which chemical methods are involved in the quantitative analysis? Quantitative analysis of organic compounds involves methods like determination of percentage constituent elements, concentration of a known compound in a given sample, etc. Whereas quantitative analysis of inorganic compound involves method like decomposition reactions, that is gravimetric analysis, and the progress of reaction between two solutions till its completion, which is called as the volumetric analysis or titrametric as well. When you say quantitative analysis, it involves measurement of quantities like mass and volume by using some equipment or apparatus like weighing machine, burette, etc. Now we shall move on to the next topic, that is precision and accuracy of measurement. Let us now watch a small video to understand the same.
Accuracy and precision. Accuracy and precision help inform our knowledge when taking measurements. Accuracy refers to how close something is to the target or actual. Using a target to illustrate, consistently hitting near the center would be accurate. Using another example, if we were to use a scale to weigh a 20 kilogram dumbbell 3 times, and the scale read 18.95 kilograms, 21.22 kilograms, and 19.81 kilograms for each respective weighing, we would say that scale is accurate. Now let's jump to precision and then we'll bring it back together. So precision refers to how consistent our results are regardless of how close to the true value they are. Using our target example, if we hit this area of the target on every shot, then we are precise. Using the scale in a 20 kilogram dumbbell example, getting measurements of 23.11, 23.09, and 23.12 for the 3 trials would tell us our scale is precise, just not accurate. It's consistently inconsistent. So let's do a quick review and comparison. Accuracy is measuring near the true value, while precision is getting consistent measurements or results. Let's use the target for some more examples. This would be accurate and precise. All the points are close together and average around the true value. This would be accurate but not precise. The results are around the true value but not consistent with each other. This would be precise but not accurate. All the results are close together but not consistent with the true value. And finally, this is neither precise nor accurate. This is pretty much how it looks when I'm shooting. No consistency, not equidistant from the center, just random. It's important that measuring devices are both accurate and precise, whether it be in research, construction, engineering, or even in your home. If they're not, then results for measurements will be misleading at best and fatal at worst.
I hope by now you must have understood what is precision and accuracy. The aim of any measurement is to get the actual value, and that actual value is called as the true value or accepted value of a particular quantity. If in case you are close by to the measured value to the true value, then it is called as the accuracy of measurement. Larger the accuracy, smaller is going to be the error, and this depends upon the sensitivity of the least count. Least count is the smallest quantity that can be measured. Let us understand this by considering the example of a burette reading 10.2 ml. So this is a picture. 3 burettes are placed here and the reading displayed on all the 3 burettes is 10.2 ml. But if you observe carefully, there is little uncertainty that appears. What do I mean by that? We know that true value is the actual value and least count is the smallest quantity that can be measured. In the picture here, all the 3 burettes, the value appears to be 10.2 ml. So here the actual value is in the range of 10.1 ml to 10.3 ml, which means the reading lies between 10.1 to 10.3 ml. And the least count here would be plus minus 0.1 ml. Okay, so that is the error. In the above picture, the first burette, the reading 10.2 is considered, but if you look at the meniscus, it is just below the 0.2 mark. Whereas in the second burette, the 10.2 reading which is considered, the meniscus lies just below 10.1 mark. Whereas in the third burette reading, the 10.2 ml reading lies just below the 10.2 ml mark. So there is an error of 0.1 ml which is considered as the least count. There are two types of error: absolute error and relative error. Absolute error is the difference between observed value and the true value. But relative error is generally a more useful quantity when you compare it with the absolute error. Relative error is defined as the ratio of absolute error to the true value, and it is expressed in terms of percentage. Now, why is it so that these errors are caused? Of course, it depends on the person to person who carries out any particular experiment. If you want to reduce the error, then multiple readings of the same quantity are taken. And if these readings match closely, then they are said to have high precision. High precision is a prerequisite for high accuracy. Prerequisite means something that is necessary for something else to happen or exist. So, which means only if there is precision, then it will be accurate. Precision is expressed in terms of deviation. An absolute deviation is the modulus of the difference between an observed value and the arithmetic mean for the set of several measurements made in the same way. The arithmetic mean of all the absolute deviations is called as the mean absolute deviation in the measurement. The ratio of mean absolute deviation to its arithmetic mean is called as relative deviation. So this was all about precision and accuracy of measurement. Next topic is determination of molecular formula. Molecular formula indicates the actual number of atoms of the constituent elements in a molecule. Now we are going to study how to determine the percent composition and empirical formula. What is this empirical formula? It is the simplest ratio of atoms of the constituent elements in a molecule. Now we are going to study how to calculate the percent composition of elements and the empirical formula. So here are some steps which will help us do so. So here is a sum. It says a compound contains 4.07% hydrogen, 24.2% carbon and 71.65% chlorine by mass. Its molar mass is 98.96 gram. What is its empirical formula? And they have given the atomic masses of hydrogen, carbon and chlorine, which are 1.008, 12 and 35.453 unified mass respectively. The first step that we need to follow here is we have to check whether the sum of all the percentages is 100. So we are going to add 4.07%, 24.27% and 71.65%. So we get it as 99.99, so which can be considered as 100. So therefore no need to consider presence of oxygen atom in the molecule. Now whenever you add the percentage and when you get it as 100, you need not consider oxygen molecule. But if in case you get it less than 100, like 70, 75, 80, 95, anywhere there, then the remaining percent is your oxygen atom. Next step is conversion of mass percent to grams. So 4.07% of hydrogen will now be considered as 4.07 gram of hydrogen. 24.27% of carbon will now be considered as 24.27 gram of carbon. and 71.65% of chlorine will now be considered as 71.65 gram of chlorine. Third step is converting into number of moles of each element. So we are going to take the mass and divide it by the atomic mass of various elements. So here we have three elements, that is hydrogen, carbon and chlorine. So moles of hydrogen we have 4.07 gram and 1.008 gram is the atomic mass. So after calculating you will get the answer as 4.04. Next is carbon, which is 24.27 gram divided by its atomic mass, which is 12.01 gram. After calculation the answer is 2.0225. Next element is chlorine. So we have 71.65 gram chlorine divided by its atomic mass, which is 35.453 grams. After calculation we get the answer as 2.021. The fourth step is, now the mole values that we got, we are going to divide it by the smallest value among the three numbers. So first is 4.04, 2.0225, 2.021. So the smallest from these three is 2.021. Okay, so we will divide 4.04 divided by 2.021, which will give us the answer as 2. Next we will take 2.0225 divided by 2.021, which will give us answer as 1. And the last one is 2.021 divided by 2.021, which will give us the answer as 1. So hydrogen will be 2, carbon will be 1 and chlorine also will be 1. So it is in the ratio 2:1:1. Now always keep in mind the ratios should be in whole numbers, not in decimals. So if in case you are getting as 1.98, then you can consider it as 2, or if you are getting it as 2.02, then you can consider it as 2. Fifth step is writing the empirical formula by mentioning the numbers after writing the symbols of respective elements. So carbon we got 1, so no need to write C1, we can just write C. Hydrogen we got 2, so we'll write as H2, and chlorine is just 1, so we'll write as Cl. So the formula is CH2Cl. The next step, the sixth step, is writing the molecular formula. So first we need to determine the empirical formula mass. So we are going to add up the atomic mass of all the atoms which are present in the empirical formula. So we know there is 1 carbon atom, 2 hydrogen atom and 1 chlorine atom. So carbon, the atomic mass of carbon is 12.01 plus 2 times 1.008, which is the atomic mass of hydrogen, plus the atomic mass of chlorine, which is 35.453, and the answer is 49.48 grams. The next part is we are going to divide the molar mass by the empirical formula mass. So the molar mass was 98.96, which is already given in the question. Divide by the empirical mass, which we just found out, which is 49.48 grams. So after calculating it, we get the answer as 2. Now we just have to multiply 2 by the formula which you obtained, that was CH2Cl. So molecular formula is equal to R into empirical formula. So 2 times into CH2Cl is going to give me C2H4Cl twice. So this is how you determine the percent composition and the empirical formula of a compound. Let us study one more example. A compound with molar mass 159 was found to contain 39.62% of copper and 20.13% sulfur. Suggest molecular formula for the compound. The atomic masses of copper, sulfur and oxygen are given as 62, 32 and 16 respectively. The first step is we need to calculate the percentage of the elements and find out if it is coming to 100. So percentage of copper plus percentage of sulfur, that is 39.62 plus 20.13. We are getting the answer as 59.75. So I told you if it is less than 100, then it means oxygen is present. So how do you calculate the percentage of oxygen present? You will take 100 minus 59.75. So the answer is 40.25%. So 40.25% of oxygen is also present in this compound. Next step is you need to convert the percentage in terms of gram. So 39.62% of copper will become 39.62 gram. 20.13% of sulfur will become 20.13 gram. And 40.25% of oxygen will become 40.25 gram of oxygen. First, we will calculate the moles of copper, that is the mass upon molar mass, which is 39.62 upon 63, and the answer is 0.629. Next is moles of sulfur, that is 20.13 divided by 32, and the answer is 0.629. Next is moles of oxygen. Oxygen is 40.25 divided by 16. It gives us the answer 2.516. Next is we need to consider the smallest answer among these three. So 0.629, 0.629 and 2.516. So 0.629 is the smallest number. So we will take 0.629 for copper and divide it by 0.629, and the answer will come as 1. For sulfur, 0.629 divided by 0.629, and the answer will come as 1. For oxygen, 2.516 divided by 0.629 will get the answer as 4. So copper is 1, sulfur is 1 and oxygen is 4. So the empirical formula is CuSO4. Next, we need to calculate the empirical formula mass. So copper is 63, sulfur is 32 and 4 times oxygen atoms, which is 16. So we get the answer as 159. If you calculate the molar mass of copper sulfate, then it will come as 159. Hence molar mass is equal to your empirical formula mass, and molecular formula becomes equal to empirical formula, which is CuSO4. CuSO4 is the formula of copper sulfate.